Cold doesn't begin to describe it. You can say minus 30 degrees. You can say frostbite, hypothermia, frozen. None of those words capture what it was like at the Chosin Reservoir in November 1950. Cold that made your rifle freeze solid. Cold that made morphine syrettes useless because the morphine crystallized. Cold that killed you just as dead as Chinese bullets, maybe slower, maybe more cruel. I'm Thomas Brennan, Corporal, 1st Marine Division, Baker Company, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. I was 23 years old when we went into North Korea. I'd joined the Marines in 1948, missed World War II by a few years, thought I'd do my time in peacetime. Then Korea happened, and suddenly I was shipping out to a war nobody back home seemed to care about. I grew up in Boston, working-class family, Irish Catholic, 5 brothers. I was the middle kid, always trying to prove myself, always trying to stand out. The Marines gave me that, gave me purpose, gave me identity, made me into something more than just another Brennan kid from Southie. I met Danny O'Brien at Camp Pendleton during advanced training. He was from Chicago, loud and funny, the kind of guy who could make anyone laugh, even when things were miserable. We got assigned to the same platoon, bunked near each other, went through everything together. Became best friends the way you do when you're young and far from home and facing an uncertain future together. Danny and me, we were inseparable. On liberty, we'd hit the bars together. In training, we'd push each other to be better. When we got orders to ship out to Korea in September 1950, we made a pact. We'd watch each other's backs, keep each other alive, make sure we both got home. We believed it. We really believed we could will ourselves through it, that friendship and determination were enough to survive a war. The war seemed almost over when we landed. The North Koreans were on the run, pushed back almost to the Chinese border. Everyone said we'd be home by Christmas. Easy duty, they said. Mop up what's left and go home. We pushed north through October and into November, past the 38th parallel, past Pyongyang, all the way up toward the Yalu River. The weather got colder as we went. Snow started falling. The Marines issued us cold weather gear, parkas, thermal boots, gloves, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough for what was coming. By late November, we'd reached the Chosin Reservoir, a frozen wasteland in the mountains of North Korea, surrounded by higher ground on all sides. Perfect place for an ambush. But intelligence said there weren't many Chinese in the area. A few scattered units, nothing serious. Intelligence was wrong. The Chinese had moved 200,000 troops into the mountains around us. 200,000 waiting in the cold, preparing to spring the trap. And we walked right into it. Danny and I talked about home the night before it started. November 27th, 1950. We were in our sleeping bags, or trying to sleep anyway. But it was too cold. You couldn't really sleep in that cold. You just lay there shivering, drifting in and out, never quite warm enough. First thing I'm doing when we get back, Danny said, his breath frosting in the air, is getting the biggest steak in Chicago. So big it hangs off the plate. You're going to need 2 plates, I told him. 2 plates, a gallon of beer, and a warm bed. Jesus, Tommy, what I wouldn't give for a warm bed. 3 more weeks, I said. Maybe a month. Then we're done with this frozen hellhole. Danny laughed. You believe that? You really think we're going home for Christmas? Command says so. Command's full of shit. But yeah, I hope so. I want to see my ma. Want to tell her I'm okay, that I made it. You will, I promised him. We both will. We made a deal, remember? I remember. That was the last normal conversation we had. The last time things felt manageable. The last time before everything went to hell. The Chinese attacked after midnight on November 27th. Came down from the mountains by the thousands, blowing bugles and whistles, screaming, shooting. They hit us from 3 sides at once, a human wave that just kept coming. I woke up to gunfire and shouting. rolled out of my sleeping bag, grabbed my M1, tried to get oriented. It was chaos. Dark, confusion, tracers cutting through the night, explosions everywhere. The Chinese were already in our perimeter, already among us. "Tommy," Danny's voice. "Tommy, get up." He was at my side, pulling me toward the fighting line. We ran through the snow, stumbling, trying to reach our defensive position. Men were running everywhere, some toward the fight, some away from it, some just standing there, frozen with shock or cold or fear. We made it to a low stone wall that our platoon was using for cover. Maybe 20 Marines there, firing into the darkness at shapes moving through the snow. Muzzle flashes everywhere. The sound was overwhelming. Rifles, machine guns, grenades, mortars, bugles, whistles, screaming in Chinese and English and wordless terror. "How many?" I shouted to Sergeant Miller. "Too fucking many," he shouted back. "Just keep shooting." So we shot, fired into the dark mass of attacking Chinese soldiers. They kept coming. You'd drop one and another would take his place. Drop 10 and 20 more appeared. They didn't care about casualties, didn't care about cover, just kept attacking, wave after wave, trying to overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Danny was next to me, firing steadily. His face was set, focused. He wasn't the joking, laughing Danny anymore. This was combat Danny, the Marine, doing his job. We'd trained for this. We were ready for this. Except nothing prepares you for fighting in minus 30-degree weather against an enemy that outnumbers you 10 to 1. The cold was its own enemy. My hands were numb inside my gloves. My rifle kept jamming, the oil in the bolt freezing, causing malfunctions. I had to work the action manually, force the frozen parts to move. Other Marines were having the same problem. Some just threw their rifles down and grabbed weapons off the dead. Ours or theirs, didn't matter. We held that position for 6 hours, 6 hours of continuous combat. The Chinese would attack, we'd drive them back, they'd regroup and attack again. The bodies piled up in front of our position. Chinese bodies mostly, but Marines too. Men I knew, men I'd trained with, men who'd been alive and joking yesterday. Dawn came finally, gray and cold. The Chinese pulled back with the light. They preferred to attack at night, and we got our first real look at the situation. It was bad, really bad. We were surrounded, cut off from the rest of the regiment, low on ammunition, running out of medical supplies, and the cold was getting worse. The wounded were the worst to see, men with bullet wounds, but also with frostbite, blackened fingers and toes, faces with patches of frozen flesh. The corpsmen couldn't help them much. The morphine wouldn't work. The plasma was frozen solid. All they could do was bandage wounds and try to keep men from freezing to death while they bled. Danny and I checked our ammunition. Between us, we had maybe 40 rounds left. Not enough. Not nearly enough for another night like that. "We're in deep shit," Danny said quietly. "Yeah," I agreed. "Yeah, we are." The next 3 days were hell. Hell made of ice and bullets and bodies. The Chinese attacked every night. We held every night, but barely. We were running out of everything. Ammunition, food, medical supplies, men. The cold was relentless. Men were getting frostbite even while fighting. Fingers would freeze to rifle triggers. Feet would freeze inside boots. If you got wounded and couldn't move, the cold would kill you faster than the wound. We found Marines frozen to death in fighting positions, still holding their rifles, still facing the enemy. We couldn't bury the dead. The ground was frozen solid, too hard to dig. So we stacked them, piled the bodies like cordwood, covered them with ponchos, tried to give them some dignity. But mostly we just tried to keep ourselves alive. Danny and I stayed together, fought together, ate together, when there was food to eat, tried to keep warm together. We'd huddle in a fighting hole at night, sharing body heat, taking turns on watch. The pact we'd made, the promise to keep each other alive, it became the only thing that mattered. On the third night, November 29th, The Chinese hit us harder than before. More troops, better organized. They were trying to overrun our position, trying to break through before we could be reinforced or evacuated. The fighting was hand-to-hand in places. Chinese soldiers in our lines, bayonets and rifle butts and knives. I killed a man with my entrenching tool, hit him in the head when he came over the wall. His skull made a sound I'll never forget. He fell, and another took his place, and I hit him too. Danny was firing controlled bursts, trying to make every shot count. We were down to our last magazines. After this, it would be bayonets and fists and whatever we could find. "Tommy," Danny shouted, "behind you." I turned, Chinese soldier, maybe 5 feet away, rifle raised. I brought my M1 up, but knew I was too slow, knew he had me. Danny's rifle cracked. The soldier dropped. Danny had saved me. Again. 3rd time that night. "Thanks," I gasped. "That's 3 you owe me, Tommy. I'm keeping count." We laughed. Actually laughed, standing in the middle of a nightmare, surrounded by death and cold and horror. But that's what you do. You laugh because the alternative is to break down, and breaking down means dying. The attack finally broke just before dawn. The Chinese pulled back, leaving hundreds of their dead in the snow around our position. We'd held, again. But we'd lost more men. The perimeter was smaller now, tighter. We were being compressed, surrounded, slowly crushed. "They're going to keep coming until we're all dead," someone said. Private Morrison, I think. Young kid, only 18. "Then we'll kill them until they stop coming," Sergeant Miller said. "That's the job. That's what Marines do." But you could see it in his eyes. He knew what Morrison knew, what we all knew. We were going to die here, in this frozen wasteland, far from home, fighting a war that nobody cared about. Unless we got out, unless we broke through, unless we retreated. The word came down that afternoon. We were pulling out, fighting retreat to Hagaru-ri, where the rest of the division was. 14 miles through mountains, through snow, through Chinese positions. 14 miles carrying our wounded, our equipment, our dead. 14 miles of running a gauntlet. It was retreat, but Marines don't retreat. We advance in a different direction. The breakout started after dark on November 30th. We loaded the wounded onto trucks and jeeps. The dead, we had to leave. No room for them, no way to carry them. We marked the positions, promised we'd come back for them. Most of us knew that was a lie, but we said it anyway. Danny and I were in the rear guard, last men out, protecting the column as it moved. It was the most dangerous position, but somebody had to do it. And we volunteered because that's what you do when you're Marines. You take the hard jobs. You protect your brothers. The column moved slowly. The road was narrow, covered in ice. The trucks kept sliding, getting stuck. And the Chinese were everywhere. On the hills above us, shooting down. Behind us, harassing. Ahead of us, setting ambushes. We fought every step of those 14 miles. The rear guard would set up, cover the column as it moved, then fall back and set up again. Over and over, mile after mile, all night long. The cold was as bad as the combat. Men were falling from exhaustion and frostbite. We had to keep moving. Stopping meant freezing, but moving was agony. Every step was effort. Every breath was pain. The cold air burned your lungs. Your feet were numb blocks of ice in your boots. Danny's hands were bad. Frostbite, 2nd degree at least. His fingers were white and waxy, couldn't bend properly. He could barely hold his rifle. But he held it anyway, kept fighting, kept moving. "You need to get to a corpsman," I told him. "And leave you?" "Fuck that. We're getting out together, remember?" "Danny." "I remember the pact, Tommy. I'm not breaking it now." So he stayed. Fought with hands that barely worked. Marched on feet he couldn't feel. Kept going through sheer stubbornness and the bond between us. We made it maybe 8 miles before the Chinese hit us hard. Set up a roadblock, heavy machine guns and mortars. The column stopped, pinned down. We had to clear it, or we'd all die on that road. Sergeant Miller organized an assault. 2 squads, flanking movement, tried to take out the machine guns. Danny and I were in the assault group. Of course we were. We were always in the assault group. We moved through the snow, trying to flank the position. It was slow going. Deep snow, uneven ground, exhaustion weighing on every step. The Chinese saw us coming, started firing. Tracers in the dark, bullets kicking up snow around us. Private Chen went down, shot through the leg. Danny and I grabbed him, one on each side, dragged him to cover behind some rocks. The machine gun was still firing, keeping us pinned. "We got to take that gun out," Danny said. "Yeah, I'll go left, you go right. Flank it." Tommy dash. "It's the only way. On 3, 1, 2, 3. We moved. Danny went right, I went left, both of us running through the snow, zigzagging, trying to make ourselves hard targets. The machine gun tracked toward me, and I dove behind a boulder just as the bullets arrived, chewing into the snow where I'd been. That's when Danny made his move, rushed the position while the gun was focused on me. He threw a grenade. I saw the arc of it against the night sky, and it landed right in the machine gun nest. The explosion lit up the night. The machine gun went silent. "Danny!" I shouted. "Danny, you get it?" No answer. I came around the boulder, moving toward where he should be. Found him lying in the snow 20 feet from the destroyed machine gun position. He was on his back, staring up at the sky. I ran to him, dropped to my knees beside him. "Danny? Danny, talk to me." He'd been hit, multiple rounds, chest and stomach, blood everywhere, black in the moonlight, steaming in the cold air. His eyes found mine. Did we get it?" His voice was weak, bubbling. Yeah, we got it. You got it, Danny. You took out the gun." He smiled. That same smile from when we first met, when we made our pact, when he talked about steaks and going home. "Good. That's good. Hold on. I'm getting a corpsman. You're going to be okay." I knew he wasn't. We both knew. But you say it anyway. "Tommy." His hand found mine, gripped it. His fingers were so cold. "Tell my ma. Tell her. You'll tell her yourself. You're going to make it. Don't bullshit me. Not now." He coughed and blood came up. "Tell her I wasn't scared. Tell her I did my job. I will. I promise. And Tommy, you get home. You hear me? You get home. For both of us." "Danny, don't..." "Promise me." "I promise." He smiled again, squeezed my hand. Then his eyes fixed on something over my shoulder, something I couldn't see. His grip relaxed. His chest stopped moving. Danny O'Brien died in the snow on a frozen mountain in North Korea, 24 years old, 3 weeks before Christmas. I don't remember much after that. They tell me I stayed there holding Danny's hand until Sergeant Miller pulled me away. Tell me I was crying, screaming, that I wouldn't let go. Don't remember any of it. I remember Miller's voice, though. "He's gone, Tommy. He's gone, and we gotta move. We gotta keep moving, or we all die here." They took Danny's dog tags, left his body. Had to. No way to carry him. No time. The Chinese were coming, and we had to move. I took his rifle, left mine, took his. Needed something of him with me. Some piece of proof that he'd existed, that he'd mattered. We kept moving. Cleared the roadblock, kept marching. I walked in a daze, following the man in front of me, doing what I was told. Fighting when we fought, marching when we marched. But I wasn't really there. Part of me was still back in that snow, holding Danny's hand, watching him die. We reached Hagaru-ri on December 4th, what was left of us. The division had started with 15,000 men around the Chosin Reservoir. We came out with maybe 10,000 still combat effective. 5,000 casualties, killed, wounded, frostbite, missing. Danny was listed as killed in action. They asked me what happened. I told them. They wrote it down, made it official. Like writing it down made it real, made it final. But it already was real, already was final. Had been since he stopped breathing in my arms. They gave us a few days' rest. Hot food, warm bunks, time to thaw out and recover. Medical checks. Most of us had frostbite to some degree. I lost 2 toes on my left foot. Small price, they said. Lucky, they said. Didn't feel lucky. Felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left just the shell walking around. Some of the guys tried to talk to me. Told me it wasn't my fault. Told me Danny died a hero, saving the column, doing his job. Told me he'd want me to keep going, to survive. I knew all that. Knew it intellectually. But knowing doesn't help. Doesn't fill the void. Doesn't bring him back. I wrote to his mother. Hardest letter I've ever written. Told her what Danny had said. That he wasn't scared. That he did his job. That he died saving men, taking out that machine gun. Told her he was a hero. Didn't tell her how cold he was when he died. Didn't tell her about the blood in the snow. Didn't tell her that we had to leave him there, that I don't know if they ever recovered his body or if he's still on that mountain, frozen in the snow, waiting. Some things mothers don't need to know. We went back into the line after a week, kept fighting. The war went on. I went through the motions, followed orders, did my job, tried to survive. But I was different, harder, colder. The part of me that laughed with Danny, that believed in the pact, that thought friendship could protect us, that part died with him. I came home in August 1951, honorably discharged, Purple Heart for the frostbite, Bronze Star for actions during the Chosin breakout. They had a little ceremony, thanked me for my service, sent me home to Boston. Nothing had changed. The same streets, same houses, same people. Like the war hadn't happened. Like Korea didn't exist. Nobody talked about it. Nobody seemed to care. It was just some police action somewhere nobody had heard of. But I'd changed. Everything had changed. I'd left as Tommy Brennan, kid from Southie, trying to prove himself. I came back as Corporal Thomas Brennan, USMC, who'd watched his best friend die in the snow and couldn't save him. I tried to go back to my old life. Got a job at the docks like my father. Went to church like my mother wanted. Dated a nice Irish girl from the neighborhood. Did all the things you're supposed to do. But I couldn't sleep. Couldn't handle the cold. Winter came, and the first time snow fell, I had a panic attack. Right there on the street, just watching snow fall, I couldn't breathe. Because snow meant the Chosin, meant Chinese attacks, meant Danny dying in my arms. I started drinking, more than I should, to sleep, to forget, to numb the memories. It helped, sort of, until it didn't, until it just made everything worse. The nightmares never stopped. Still haven't, even now, 24 years later. I dream about that night. Dream about the machine gun, the grenade, finding Danny in the snow. Sometimes in the dream, I save him. Get to him faster, stop the bleeding, keep him alive. Those dreams are worse than the ones where he dies. Because I wake up and he's still gone. I went to Chicago once. 1955, 4 years after. Wanted to visit Danny's mother. Wanted to see if she was okay. Wanted to, I don't know. Make sure she knew he was a hero, that he mattered. She'd kept my letter. showed it to me, framed on her wall next to Danny's medals and his picture in uniform. She thanked me, told me it meant everything to know he hadn't suffered, that he'd died brave. I lied to her, told her yes, it was quick, he didn't suffer. Didn't tell her about the blood bubbling up, about how cold he was, about how he knew he was dying and was terrified, but tried not to show it. Let her keep the version from my letter. Let her believe he went easy. Some lies are mercy. She asked me about the pact. Danny had written to her about it, about how he and I promised to watch out for each other, to both come home. She asked if I felt guilty that I kept my promise, and he didn't. I did, I do, every day, every night, every time I see snowfall or feel cold air or hear a news story about Korea. I survived and Danny didn't, and there's no logic to it, no justice, just random chance, just luck, just me being on the left when I should have been on the right. The Korean War ended in 1953. Armistice, not victory. We fought to a stalemate, drew a line across the peninsula, called it done. All those men, over 30,000 American dead, for a stalemate, for a border that looks almost the same as it did before the war started. Was it worth it? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know if containing communism justified the cost. But I know Danny died for it. Died in the snow at 24 years old, never got his stake in Chicago, never saw his mother again, never had the life he should have had. And I lived. I got all the things he didn't. The life after war. The marriage, the children, the grandchildren, the career, the house, the normalcy. All of it built on the foundation of his death and my survival. That's the weight I carry. Not just the memory of him dying. The weight of living his unlived life. Of having to make my survival mean something because he didn't get to survive. I visit his grave sometimes. He's buried in Arlington now. They recovered the bodies eventually, brought them home. He's in section 12, row after row of white headstones. I bring whiskey, pour some on his grave, drink some myself. Tell him about my kids, about my life, about how the world's changed. Tell him I'm sorry, that I should have been faster, should have saved him, should have kept my part of the pact. The cold doesn't bother me as much anymore. I've lived through too many winters since Chosin to let it control me. But I don't like it. Don't like snow. Don't like that feeling when the temperature drops and you can see your breath. Because every time I'm 23 years old again, holding Danny's hand in the snow, watching him die while I survive. We were best friends, brothers. We promised to keep each other alive. I failed. He died a hero. They gave him the Silver Star posthumously. His name is on memorials. He's remembered, honored, celebrated, but he's still dead. Still 24 forever. Still lying in that snow in my memory, looking up at me with dying eyes, asking me to tell his mother he was brave. I kept that promise, told her he was brave, told everyone he was brave. What I don't tell them is that I was terrified, that I wanted to run, to hide, to not be there when he died, that I failed him when it mattered most. That's what survival means. Living with the failure, the guilt, the weight of promises you couldn't keep. Living with the memory of your best friend dying in your arms while you were powerless to save him. Danny O'Brien was brave, was funny, was loyal, was my best friend, was everything good about being a Marine. And he died in the snow at the Chosin Reservoir in November 1950, and I've been carrying him with me every day since. That's what war does. It kills some of us and haunts the rest. It takes your best friend and leaves you with memories and guilt and the impossible task of living for two people because one of them didn't make it home. I survived the Chosin Reservoir. But I left part of myself there in the snow. The part that believed in pacts and promises. the part that thought friendship could protect you from bullets and cold and death. Danny took that part with him when he died. What came home was something else, something hollower, something that knows how to survive but not how to live. That's the real casualty of war, not the dead, who at least have peace, but the survivors who have to keep going, keep living, keep carrying the weight of everyone who didn't make it. I'm 73 years old now. Danny's still 24. Will always be 24. Frozen in my memory, like he was frozen in that snow. And I'm still trying to keep my promise. Still trying to live well enough for both of us. Still trying to make his death mean something. I don't know if I've succeeded. I don't know if it's even possible. All I know is that it's cold today, and the snow is falling, and I'm thinking about Korea, thinking about Danny, thinking about a promise I couldn't keep and a friend I couldn't save. And I'll be thinking about him tomorrow and the day after and every day until I join him. That's what it means to survive, to carry the dead with you forever.